All right, everyone, welcome to another live. I'm so glad that you're here with us and joining us today. We have another live going on, and today we're going to be doing part two of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Super excited about it. Let's go through it. Let's work it. Let's make it happen. So, again, we're going beyond credit with our, let's talk credit, but we're going to go beyond credit. We want to get into finance, understanding how to use credit properly, why we want to use credit, and all of those things as well, right? And so we want to make sure that for those of you that missed it yesterday, we want to make sure that you understand where we're at now. So we've already went through the introduction, and we've understand that there's 6 lessons that's being taught in this book. We're at lesson 1 now, and that's where we're going to start today. Okay, and so we're going to start today at lesson 1. Okay, and so lesson 1 is what? The rich don't work for money. Now that is a powerful concept, and it can be coming from 2 places. The concept can be coming from either the rich work, but they don't work for money, or the rich don't work and still make money. And both sides of that coin is equivalent, as we're going to learn through this book. And so we're walking everyone through the process of not just getting the mindset of making money, but truly understanding money. And over these months and time that we're talking and working together, we're going to understand money. And so one of the key points that we brought out yesterday that was key was understanding the difference between the debt cycle and the wealth cycle. The debt cycle, you get some income, you pay your bills, you end up short on cash, you use or spend your credit, your balances grow, right? And then you are end up paying more in interest, right? Because of that, right? And I do apologize for that. I did not mean to do that, right? So that's where we end up, okay? And so this is what happens to us on a regular basis. We end up with higher payments. So we get some income, we pay our bills, right? We short on cash, we use our credit or spend our credit, balances grow, and we get higher payments. And if you type anything in the chat, as soon as I come back to my regular screen, I will then answer anything in the chat. If you have any questions, anything you want to say, feel free to do so in the chat. Like, support our channel. Also share it. If you're watching this live now, hit share and post it to your pages or your feed. We want to do that. We want to share this with everybody. We want people to start really understanding money and how money works. So you get some income, you pay your bills, you're short on cash, you use your credit, your balances grow, right? And then you get higher payments. And so this is the debt cycle. And what we want to switch from is the debt cycle to what I call the wealth cycle. And just a couple small changes takes you from being in the debt cycle to the wealth cycle. So you're going to make some income, but instead of paying your bills immediately, you're going to pay yourself first. You're going to take this money that you paid yourself and you're going to invest that money. And this money then is going to be able to become interest. And the wealthy don't live off of their money. The wealthy live off of interest, right? So the wealthy don't spend money, they don't spend credit, they spend interest. And as this interest begins to grow, this is what they begin to live off of. And that allows their money to, or their principal, or the money that they've been accumulating from their income to constantly grow. And they never have to touch their money. And this is an extremely powerful concept that can change everything in your life. So lesson 1, again, the rich do not work for money, right? And so we're going to go through this chapter. So lesson 1, the rich don't work for money. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. Oh yeah, and one more thing I got to tell you before, I've got exciting news. I've got some super exciting news, and that is tonight at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock Eastern. I will be doing a credit bill repair workshop. I was called today that they wanted me to actually do this for them to establish credit increase your credit score, read credit report, correct errors, and be bankable. So we're going to be moving through the process of establishing credit, understanding what that means. How do you establish credit? What does it mean to establish credit? How do you increase your credit score if you've got bad credit, middle level credit, or if your credit is excellent, even you can still grow your credit, and I'll talk about that as well. Read your credit report, how to actually look at the items on your credit report and then read those, how to correct the errors. A lot of times there's little things that we need to do and understand in order to correct our credit, as well as then become bankable. And that's very important. Back to this slide right here that I was sharing with you. And that is, in order to become bankable, the one thing that you must learn to do is master credit. And this is the key point that a lot of people miss, is that they never master credit. They fix their credit and then they spend credit. They end up coming back to me because they've messed up their credit. That is not becoming bankable. Becoming bankable is learning how to master credit, learning how to invest money and use interest. And then this is going to make you bankable. And when you understand that concept, it's going to change everything for you. Okay. And so tonight's session again will be at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, the key thing about that is I'm going to also semi-broadcast that, or simultaneously, broadcast that here live with you all. So you'll be able to hear me actually go through this process. So this is going to be excellent. Hopefully all of you are able to attend. And it's going to be a powerful piece that you're going to be able to be a part of. Okay. And so those of you that are on, I believe on Facebook, you should be able to type something in the chat. If you could just type something in there to test it, as well as you all on the YouTube and the Twitch. I'd greatly appreciate that, just so I can make sure that the chat is working. You can do that during this process. I'll be going through the book. When I come back from the book, then I will check to see if you all typed anything in, and go from there. So for now, we're going to go back to the book and start in chapter 1. So lesson 1, the rich don't work for money. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them, right? So the poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. And we discussed a little bit of that yesterday, so I'm not going to go deep into that right now. I'm going to continue moving forward through the book. So it says, Dad, can you tell me how to get rich? Right? That was the question on the table. And he said his dad put down the evening paper. Why do you want to get rich, son? Because today Jimmy's mom drove up in their new Cadillac and they were going to their beach house for the weekend. He took 3 of his friends, but Mike and I weren't invited. They told us we weren't invited because we were poor kids. They did? My dad asked incredulously. Yeah, they did, I replied in a hurt tone. My dad silently shook his head, pushed his glasses up to the bridge of his nose, and went back to reading the paper. I stood waiting for an answer. The year was 1956. I was 9 years old. By some twist of fate, I attended the same public school where the rich people sent their kids. We were primarily a sugar plantation town. The managers of the plantation and the other affluent people, such as doctors, business owners, and bankers, sent their children to the elementary school. After grade 6, their children were generally sent off to private schools because my family lived on one side of the street. I went to this school. I had lived on the other side of the street. I would have gone to a different school with kids from families more like mine. After grade 6, these kids and I would go on to public, intermediate, and high school. There was no private school for them or for me. My dad finally put down the paper. I could tell he was thinking. Well, son, he began slowly, if you want to be rich, you have to learn to make money. Now, this is a key point. And remember, yesterday, in part 1 of this, as we were going over it, we talked about how when he was talking about how do I make money, or you have to learn to make money, where did he say that people learn to make money? Because it's not taught in schools, right? He said we learn to make money at home in the household. And this is key because the information, I think I told you all, I went to a conference where they were talking to us on a level where things about money we had never heard. That's why I told you there is two worlds when it comes to my two universes. This is what they said. There were two universes. There's a universe for the poor and the middle class, and there's a universe for the wealthy. And so I was privy to the information that the wealthy actually learn at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old that we never get to hear. And the question that I asked was, do you think that the conversation or the conversation about money in the poor household, if you learn about money and finance at home, because it's not taught in school system, if you learn that at home, do you think you're learning the same thing that the Rothschilds learn, that the Rockefellers learn, that Bill Gates' children learn? Do you think you're learning that? No, we're not learning that. The middle class and the poor don't learn those concepts. We learn a whole nother set of concepts that were purposefully constructed and designed to keep us working at home, or excuse me, keeping working in their jobs and in their system, making them wealthy. But you don't get to hear the conversation at 12, 13, 14 years old that's designed to make you wealthy. And it's a whole nother conversation, right? So I want you to get that. So I'm going to go back to the book. It states, he said, how do I make money? Well, use your head, son. He said, smiling. Even then, I knew that what he really meant was that's all I'm going to tell you, or I don't know the answer. So don't embarrass me. So his father, in his sense, was embarrassed to tell him to that he didn't know how to make money. He didn't. All he knew was how to go to school, get a good job, and then go get a right, and then work for somebody else. But when it came to making his own money, when it came to the creation process of making money, he knew absolutely nothing about it. And we're talking about in 1956. So you can really understand that there wasn't any level of information out at that time on the level that it is today, where you're privy to a lot more information. And even though we still haven't been taught anything. Even when we think we know about making money, it's actually a trap as well. So I want you to get, there's a whole nother level of understanding wealth. And we're going to begin to understand that. And I want to start with the basics. And that's why we're starting with this book. So, well, use your head, son, he said, smiling. Even then, I knew that really meant that's all I'm going to tell you. I don't know the answer, so don't embarrass me. So a partnership is formed. The next morning, I told my best friend, Mike, what my dad had said. As best as I could tell, Mike and I were the only poor kids in this school. Mike was also in this school by a twist of fate. Someone had drawn a jog in the line for the school district, and we wound up in the school with the rich kids. We weren't really poor, but we felt as if we were because all the other boys had new basketball gloves, new bicycles, everything. Mom and dad provided us with the basics like food, shelter, and clothes, but that was about it. My dad used to say, if you want something, work for it. We wanted things, but there was not much work available for 9-year-old boys, right? And so they were out working, trying to build at this time, trying to find work and trying to find a way to make money. So what do we do to make money? Mike asked. I don't know, I said, but do you want to be my partner? He agreed. And so on that Saturday morning, Mike became my first business partner. We spent all morning coming up with ideas on how to make money. Occasionally, we talked about all the cool guys at Jimmy's beach house having fun. It hurt a little, but that hurt was good because it inspired us to keep thinking of a way to make money. Finally, that afternoon, a bolt of lightning struck. It was an idea Mike got from a science book he had read. Excitedly, we shook hands, and the partnership now had a business. So, what quadrant did they step into? Right? They couldn't find a job, which denounced unto them at that time was a blessing. Right? That was their first blessing. So, they had to do what? How can we make money? Right? And this was before he got that lesson, right? That he talked about yesterday. And so this was before he got that message. So what quadrant was he in? Was he in the employee quadrant, right? And you can feel free to enter it in the chat. That's cool, because if you've been following us, then you know the four quadrants. But if not, I'm going to go over them real quick. So there's the employee quadrant, which is the E, the self-employed quadrant, which is the S, the business system owner, which is the B, and the investor, which is the I. So which quadrant do you think that they were in, right? So it's very simple and easy. They stepped into the self-employed quadrant. Okay. And I want to check something on Facebook to make sure you guys are able to type. You should be able to. It should automatically allow you to do it now. But I want to check and make sure. So just give me one quick second. I'm going to go check my live real quick, just so I can see and make sure that you all are able. Yes, you should be able to type. Great. Outstanding. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. And I know everybody on my other platforms are able to type in immediately. I don't have to make those changes anymore. It's automatic now. So that's great. So all my platforms are set up properly. So we won't be having any more issues with people trying to type in the chat. I can't get it. Da 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 da. Okay. So again, he says, it said, apologize. It says he agreed, and on that Saturday morning, Mike became my first business partner. We spent all morning coming up with ideas on how to make money, right? And they started a business. So at this juncture, starting the business, what that meant was that they were in the S quadrant. So they skipped the E, which was great, actually. That was wise. And they didn't even realize it. But as children, they were ready to experiment, right? For the next several weeks, Mike and I ran around our neighborhood, knocking on doors and asking our neighbors if they would save their toothpaste tubes for us. With puzzled looks, most adults consented with a smile. Some asked us what we were doing, to which we replied, "We can't tell you, it's a business secret." My mom grew distressed as the weeks wore on. We had selected a site next to her washing machine as the place we would stockpile our raw materials. In a brown cardboard box that at one time held ketchup bottles, our little pile of used toothpaste tubes began to grow. Finally, my mom put her foot down. The sight of her neighbor's messy, crumpled, used toothpaste tubes had gotten to her. "What are you boys doing?" she asked. "I don't want to hear again that it's a business secret." "Do something with this mess or I'm going to throw it out." Mike and I pleaded and begged, explaining that we would soon have enough and then we would begin production. We informed her that we were waiting on a couple of neighbors to finish their toothpaste so we could have their tubes. Mom granted us a 1 week extension. The date to begin production was moved up and the pressure was on. My first partnership was already being threatened with an eviction notice by my mom. It became Mike's job to tell the neighbors to quickly use up their toothpaste, saying their dentist wanted them to brush more often anyway. I began to put together the production line. So one day, my dad drove up with a friend to see two 9-year-old boys in the driveway with a production line operating at full speed. There was fine white powder everywhere. On a long table were small milk cartons from school, and our family's hibachi grill was glowing with red hot coals at maximum heat. Dad walked up cautiously, having to park the car at the base of the driveway since the production line blocked the carport. As he and his friends got closer, they saw a steel pot sitting on top of the coals in which the toothpaste tubes were being melted down. In those days, toothpaste did not come in plastic tubes. The tubes were made of lead. So once the paint was burned off, the tubes were dropped in the small steel pot. They melted until they became liquid, right? And with my mom's pot holders, we poured the lead through a small hole in the top of the milk cartons. The milk cartons were filled with plaster of Paris. White powder was everywhere. In my haste, I knocked the bag over, and the entire area looked like it had been hit by a snowstorm. The milk cartons were the outer containers for the plaster of Paris molds. My dad and his friend watched as we carefully poured the molten lead through a small hole in the top of the plaster of the Paris cube, right? So I'm going to check and see if anybody put anything in the chat just to make sure. I'm coming back. All right, we will continue. So, said, careful, my dad said. I nodded without looking up. Finally, once the pouring was through, I put the steel pot down and smiled at my dad. What are you boys doing? He asked with a cautious smile. We're doing what you told me to do. We're going to be rich, I said. Yup, said Mike, grinning and nodding his head. We're partners. And what is in those plaster molds? My dad asked. Watch, I said. This should be a good batch. With a small hammer, I tapped at the seal that divided the cube in half. Cautiously, I pulled up the top half of the plaster mold and a lead nickel fell out. Oh no, my dad explained. You're casting nickels out of lead? That's right, Mike said. We're doing as you told us to do. We're making money. So they went literal with that, right? He said, my dad's friend turned and burst out into laughter. My dad smiled and shook his head. Along with a fire and a box of spent toothpaste tubes in front of him were two little boys covered with white dust smiling from ear to ear. He asked us to put everything down and sit with him in front of the step of our house. With a smile, he gently explained what the word counterfeiting meant. Our dreams were dashed. You mean this is illegal? Asked Mike in a quivering voice. Right? Let them go, my dad's friend said. They might be developing a natural talent. My dad glared at him. Yes, it is illegal, my dad said gently, but you boys have shown great creativity and original thought. Keep going. I'm really proud of you. So, what he's saying is, you can't do this anymore, but keep thinking, keep going. Even though this was the poor dad, he really was happy to see his son think and create something on that level where they were actually making money, right? So for those of you that have just joined, just wanted to let you know, I'm going to be doing tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Central, and 5 o'clock, or excuse me, 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Credit build and repair workshop. We're going to be teaching on learning how to establish credit, increase the credit score, read credit report, credit correct errors, and be bankable. Okay. The session for tonight again is 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, and 4 p.m. Pacific time. Okay. So I will be doing that. I will hopefully be able to broadcast it here live. If not, I should be dropping a link. But one way or the other, hopefully you all are able to attend and get that. Okay. So as we continue, the disappointed Mike and I sat in silence for about 20 minutes before we began cleaning up our mess. And this was ingenious that they even thought to come up with that, right? And so, but they didn't know any better. They were actually going into the money making business literally, right? The business was over on opening day. Sweeping the powder up, I looked at Mike and said, I guess Jimmy and his friends are right. We are poor. Right? He said, my father was just leaving as I said that. Boys, he said, you're only poor if you give up. Now, this, even though, even though this was poor dad speaking, this concept here, he had a wealthy mindset to a degree because he understood this concept. The only way you lose is when you quit. And I watch a lot of people because I have a lot of business partners and I've helped a lot of people to be able to increase their finances as far as in business. I've had a lot of business partners, and then I've also had a lot of people that I've helped increase finances and help start businesses. And the key thing that I recognize, especially doing business and marketing plans and then walking companies through it, is that the only way you lose is if you give up. And what most people do is they give up, they quit. They quit on themselves, right? They quit on themselves. And you can quit at any time. So why quit now? But the reason being is a lot of people have been given The average person has been given low self-esteem. And this is a very serious situation, or it's a very serious um, issue that plagues many people, is they have low self-esteem. So they don't finish or complete anything. It deals with integrity also, but the main reason that I find is not just lack of integrity, but it's low self-esteem. And so people have become professional quitters. They play the blame game when they work a job. This job, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. They quit this job. Then they go to another job. Then they quit that. Then they do this. Then they quit that. They might start going to the gym. Then they quit going to the gym. They stop. They might start a diet. They quit the diet. People have become professional quitters. And that's why you have a wealthy 1%, because it's 1% to 3% of people that don't quit. And again, as I said yesterday, a book you need to get is called The Slight Edge. It's such a powerful book, whether you get the audio version or you get the physical version. That is a book that you definitely need to read. It's one of the best books ever written, in my opinion, because The Slight Edge really walks you through the process of understanding how nature works as you build in a process. It's powerful. That's a powerful book. So if you get the opportunity, make sure that you read that book. And we might go through it through one of these books, but we're going to go through it. I don't want to deal with mindset during these. I want to deal with real facts on how to make money, how to increase your money. And so Rich Dad Poor Dad really deals with that. And this series deals with really how to make money. And that's why I want to start here with the basics and then move forward. And in between these, I will be doing, talking, sharing information, get you in access to the experts that can actually help you and walk you through these processes, as well as I'll be doing interviews and so forth. So my father was just leaving as I said that. Boys, he said, you're only poor if you give up, right? The most important thing is that you did something. Most people only talk and dream of getting rich, right? Most people only talk and dream of getting rich, okay? Give me 1 second. Most people only talk and dream of getting rich, okay? You've done something. I'm very proud of you too. I will say it again. Keep going and don't quit. Now, on this event, I just got a message that came in, and that's why I was checking this message. On this event that we're going to have here, they're advising that you're in at 5:30. So I might be starting here at 5:30, going live on that. But I just want you to know, I want you to invite everybody, invite your friends, get everybody you can on. Share this again, like I said, share this stream on your page, so more people can get this information. This information is very important that we're going to be talking about: establishing credit, increasing credit score, read credit report, correct errors, and be bankable. Okay. So again, it says, Mike and I stood there in silence. Oh, wait. He said, you've done something. I'm very proud of you too. So we did that. They stood for silence for 20 minutes. He said, you're poor, only poor if you give up. The most important thing is that you did something. Most people only talk and dream of getting rich. You've done something. I'm very proud of you too. I will say it again. Keep going and do not quit. Mike and I stood there in silence. They were nice words, but we still did not know what to do. So how come you're not rich, Dad? I asked. Right, you got bold with it. Because I chose to be a school teacher. School teachers really don't think about being rich. We just teach. I wish I could help you, but I really don't know how to make money. Mike and I turned and continued our cleanup. I know, said my dad. If you boys want to learn how to be rich, don't ask me. Talk to your dad, Mike. My dad? Asked Mike with a scrunched up face. Yeah, your dad, repeated my dad with a smile. Your dad and I have the same banker, and he raves about your father. He's told me several times that your father is brilliant when it comes to making money. right? My dad, Mike asked again in disbelief, then how come we don't have a nice car and a nice house like the rich kids at school? A nice car and a nice house don't necessarily mean you're rich or you know how to make money, my dad replied. Jimmy's dad works for the sugar plantation. He's not much different from me. He works for a company and I work for the government. The company buys the car for him. The sugar company is in financial trouble, and Jimmy's dad may have soon nothing. Your dad is different, Mike. He seems to be building an empire, and I suspect in a few years he will be a very rich man. That's key. So he did what? He's investing, taking all his money and not buying a house, a car, and those things, right? But he's investing his money so that now his what? Interest can buy his house, car, and those things. That slight change, that slight difference, right? With that, Mike and I got excited again. With new vigor, we began cleaning up the mess caused by our now defunct first business. As we were cleaning, we made plans for how and when to talk to Mike's dad. The problem was that Mike's dad worked long hours and often did not come home until late. His father owned warehouses, a construction company, a chain of stores, and three restaurants. It was the restaurants that kept him out late. Mike caught the bus home after we finished cleaning up. He was going to talk to his dad when he got home that night and asked him if he would teach us how to become rich. Mike promised to call as soon as he had talked to his dad, even if it was late. The phone rang at 8:30 p.m. Okay, I said, next Saturday. I put the phone down. Mike's dad had agreed to meet with us. On Saturday, I caught the 7:30 a.m. bus to the poor side of town. Okay. So now the lesson begins. I'm going to do station identification real quick and then move forward. All right, welcome back. We're going to Think and Grow Rich. We're talking about Think and Grow Rich. We're at part two of Think and Grow Rich, lesson number one, and the lesson begins. The real lesson begins, right? And tonight we're going to be doing the credit build and repair workshop. Just letting you know, tonight starting at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's going to be credit build and repair workshop. Learn how to establish credit, increase credit score, read credit report, correct errors, and be bankable. We advise everyone to be there or be here because I'm going to be simultaneously broadcasting it at 5:30, just in case I have to start early. I don't know if they've changed the time or whatever, but I would just advise you to be here at 5:30. All right. So with that, we will be back, and that's 5:30 Central Standard Time, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, or 4 or 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. All right, so we are back. The lesson begins, and I'm super excited about the lesson. So let's roll with it. Mike and I met with his dad that morning at 8 o'clock. He was already busy. Having been at work for more than an hour, his construction supervisor was just leaving in his pickup truck as I walked up his simple, small, and tidy home. Mike met me at the door. Dad's on the phone, and he said to wait on the back porch. Mike said as he opened the door. I'm sorry, Mike said as he opened the door. The old wooden floor creaked as I stepped across the threshold of the aging house. There was a cheap mat just inside the door. The mat was there to hide the years of wear from countless footsteps that the floor had supported. Although clean, it needed to be replaced. I felt claustrophobic as I entered the narrow living room that was filled with old, musty, overstuffed furniture that today would be collector's items. Sitting on the couch were two women, both a little older than my mom. Across from the women sat a man in workman's clothes. He wore khaki slacks and a khaki shirt, neatly pressed but without starch, and polished work boots. He was about 10 years older than my dad. They smiled as Mike and I walked past them toward the back porch. I smiled back shyly. Who are those people? I asked. Oh, they work for my dad. The older man runs his warehouse, and the women are the managers of the restaurants. As you arrived, you saw the construction supervisor who is working on a road project about 50 miles from here. His other supervisor, who is building a tract of houses, left before you got here. Does this go on all the time? I asked. Not always, but quite often, said Mike, smiling as he pulled up to the chair to sit down next to me. I asked my dad if he would teach us to make money, Mike said. Oh, and what did he say to that? I asked with cautious curiosity. Well, he said a funny, well, he had a funny look on his face at first, and then he said he would make us an offer. Oh, I said, rocking my chair back against the wall. I sat there perched on two rear legs of the chair. Mike did the same thing. Do you know what the offer is? I asked. No, but we'll soon find out. Suddenly, Mike's dad burst through the rickety screen door and onto the porch. Mike and I jumped to our feet, not out of respect, but because we were startled. Ready, boys? He asked as he pulled up a chair to sit down with us. We nodded our heads as we pulled our chairs away from the wall to sit in front of him. He was a big man, about 6 feet tall and 200 pounds. My dad was taller, about the same weight, and 5 years older than Mike's dad. They sort of looked alike, though not of the same ethnic makeup. Maybe their energy was similar. Energy, key point. Mike says you want to learn to make money. Is that correct, Robert? I nodded my head quickly, but with a little trepidation. He had a lot of power behind his words and a smile. Okay, here's my offer. I'll teach you, but I won't do it classroom style. And this is key. This is a high point here, right? He's not going to do it classroom style. And this is where a lot of people think that learning takes place, but learning doesn't take place in the classroom. Learning takes place in real life, right? And so these life lessons is what's going to make the difference, hands on. There was a time before they had co-op, and that's why it was introduced, where companies weren't even hiring people out of college because they did not have hands-on experience, because hands-on experience, life experience is what makes the difference. It's not about why something works, though it's good to know it. It's how it works that is very important. So again, that's why we talked about what yesterday. We're not going to learn what to think. We're learning how to think. Okay, here's my offer. I'll teach you, but I won't do it in a classroom style. You work for me, I'll teach you. You don't work for me, I won't teach you. I can teach you faster if you work, and I'm wasting my time if you just want to sit and listen like you do in school. That's my offer. Take it or leave it. Key point, right? That's a high point. And that's what I like about the industry that we're in. We teach while we work. We call it a self development program with a compensation plan. Because if you don't work it, then you'll never learn it, right? So we want to constantly work. We want to constantly win. We want to constantly keep moving. Okay, here's my offer. I'll teach you, but I won't do it in a classroom style. You'll work for me, I'll teach you. You don't work for me, I won't teach you. I can teach you faster if you work, and I'm wasting my time if you just want to sit and listen like you do in school. That's my offer. Take it or leave it. May I ask a question first? I ask. No. Take it or leave it. I've got too much work to do to waste my time. If you can't make up your mind decisively, which where do we find this at? Think and Grow Rich. That is a key separator between the wealthy and those that are not wealthy. One of the key separators is the difference between what working, the difference between making up your mind decisively and those that can't and quickly. You can't just you not only do you need to make up your mind decisively, you have to make it up quickly and decisively and be able to stand on that position. You're slow to changing, right? But you're quick to be able to see an opportunity and take advantage of it, right? If you can't make up your mind decisively, then you'll never learn to make money anyway. And that's mindset. Opportunities come and go. Being able to know when to make quick decisions is an important skill. It's a very important skill. You have the opportunity that you asked for. School is beginning or it's over in 10 seconds. Mike's dad said with a teasing smile. Take it, I said. Take it, said Mike. Good, said Mike's dad. Right? And that was the best choice that they had ever made in their life. This choice right here, to be able to take this opportunity, and this is where most people miss. Most people miss opportunity. And again, that is a mindset training. I'm not going to go into that deeply, but most people miss opportunity because they're afraid to make a decision quickly, even though they know they should do it, even though they know it's a good opportunity, even though they know that that's what they're supposed to do. They are afraid to make the choice. And you were taught that in school because you were taught failing was bad all your life. You have to fail your way to the top. But most people miss opportunity because of fear. And I love this because this book goes very deep into fear and what people are afraid of. And it's extremely, extremely powerful. So as we continue, it says, good, said Mike Dad. Miss Martin will be in 10 minutes. After I'm through with her, you'll ride with her to the superette and you can begin working. I'll pay you 10 cents an hour and you'll work 3 hours every Saturday. But I have a softball game today, I said. Mike's dad lowered his voice to a stern tone. Take it or leave it, he said. I'll take it, I replied, choosing to work and learn instead of playing. That's another key point. That's another key point or high point throughout this book. So make sure you table that, okay? So what was the first lesson? What was the first lesson, right? Or the first beginning portion of that lesson? The first portion of the first lesson was to be able to make a quick decision and stand on that decision, right? So you want to be able to do that. You want to be able to make quick decisions, but you have to have a certain level of knowledge to make quick decisions, right? If you understand how opportunities are created, you actually create every opportunity that shows up in your space. You create the opportunity. And once you are able to take responsibility, or if you're, yeah, actually, once you can take responsibility for creating the opportunities that are showing up in your space, the only question you're asking is, why did I create this opportunity? Because it has something to do with something you asked for or something you wanted. It just didn't show up the way you thought it would. And so because of that, many people turn down the opportunities that would make a change in their entire life because they're afraid. By 9 a.m. that day, Mike and I were working for Mrs. Martin. She was a kind and patient woman. She always said that Mike and I reminded her of her two grown sons. Although kind, she believed in hard work and kept us moving. We spent 3 hours taking canned goods off the shelves, brushing each can with a feather duster to get the dust off, and then restacking them neatly. It was excruciatingly boring work, right? Now, for those of you that just joined, again, today we're going to have our credit build and repair workshop. Learn how to establish credit, increase credit score, read credit report, correct errors, and be bankable. Okay. It's going to start at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern, and 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, the key thing is we want everybody there at 5:30 because it might start early. I'm going to be simulcasting that as well at that time. Look forward to seeing you all there. It's going to be powerful. All right. So let me take that, and we're going back to the book. So Mike's dad, whom I call my rich dad, owned 9 of these little superettes, each with a large parking lot, right? They were the early version of the 7-Eleven convenience stores, little neighborhood grocery stores where people bought items such as milk, bread, butter, and cigarettes. The problem was that this was Hawaii before air conditioning was widely used, and the stores could not close their doors because of the heat. On 2 sides of the store, the doors had to be wide open to the road and parking lot. Every time a car drove by or pulled into the parking lot, dust would swirl and settle in the store. We knew we had a job as long as there was no air conditioning. For 3 weeks, Mike and I reported to Mrs. Martin and worked our 3 hours. By noon, our work was over. She dropped 3 little dimes in each of our hands. Now, even at the age of 9 in the mid 1950s, 30 cents was not too exciting. Comic books cost 10 cents back then, so I usually spent money on comic books and went home. On Wednesday of the 4th week, I was ready to quit. I agreed to work only because I wanted to learn to make money from Mike's dad, and now I was a slave for 10 cents an hour. On top of that, I had not seen Mike's dad since that first Saturday. I'm quitting. Uh-oh. These are the key words. These are the words of a failure. These are the words of a loser. These are the words, right? And his father, his poor dad, actually taught him better than that. Don't quit, right? But in this instant, they looked at it differently, as you're going to see, right? Because we were trained to look at it differently, right? So now it says, I'm quitting. I told Mike at lunchtime, school was boring, and now I did not even have my Saturdays to look forward to. But it was the 30 cents that really got me. This time Mike smiled. What are you laughing at? I asked with anger and frustration. Dad said this would happen. He said to meet with him when you were ready to quit. What? I said indignantly. He's been waiting for me to get fed up. Sort of, Mike said. Dad's kind of different. He doesn't teach like your dad. Your mom and dad lecture a lot. My dad is quiet and a man of few words. You just wait till this Saturday. I'll tell him you're ready. You mean I've been set up? No, not really, but maybe. Dad will explain on Saturday. Waiting in line on Saturday. I was ready to face Mike's dad. Even my real dad was angry with him. My real dad, the one I call the poor one, thought that my rich dad was violating child labor laws and should be investigated. Ah, right. Listen to the word. I want you to listen to these words because these are the type of words that those that are poor use. These are concepts, and throughout this book, right? Throughout this book, we're going to be dealing with concepts, different concepts, different contrasts or contrasted ideas, right? That those that are impoverished or middle class use versus those that are wealthy. It's a different language, right? And we dealt with a little bit of that in the introduction, but I want us to be cognizant of those facts, okay? So I want us to be aware when we're hearing that which is going to be contrary, or the language, and we're hearing the contrary language to each other, right? So my real dad, the one I called the poor one, thought that my rich dad was violating child labor laws and should be investigated. My educated poor dad told me to demand what I deserve, at least 25 cents an hour. My poor dad told me that if I did not get a raise, I was to quit immediately, right? You don't need that damn job anyway, said my poor dad with indignation. At 8 o'clock Saturday morning, I walked through the door of Mike's house when Mike's dad opened it. Take a seat and wait in line, he said as I entered. He turned and disappeared into his little office next to a bedroom. I looked around the room and didn't see Mike anywhere. Feeling awkward, I cautiously sat down next to the same two women who were there 4 weeks earlier. They smiled and slid down the couch to make room for me. 45 minutes went by and I was steaming. The two women had met with him and left 30 minutes earlier. An older gentleman was in there for 20 minutes and was also gone. The house was empty, and here I sat in a musky, dark living room on a beautiful, sunny Hawaiian day, waiting to talk to a cheapskate who exploited children. I could hear him rustling around the office, talking on the phone and ignoring me. I was ready to walk out, but for some reason, I stayed. Finally, 15 minutes later, at exactly 9 o'clock, Rich Dad walked out of his office, said nothing, and signaled with his hand for me to enter. I understand you want to raise, or are you going to quit? Rich Dad said as he swiveled in his office chair. Well, you're not keeping your end of the bargain, I blurted out, nearly in tears. It was really frightening for me to have to confront a grown up. You said that you would teach me if I worked for you. Well, I've worked for you. I've worked hard. I've given up my baseball games to work for you. But you haven't kept your word and you haven't taught me anything. You are a crook like everyone in town thinks you are. You're greedy. You want all the money and don't care of your employees. Now, all of this language he got from his poor father, right? All of this language he got from his poor father. I want you to pay attention. You made me wait and don't show me any respect. I'm only a little boy, but I deserve to be treated better. Now, this conversation is key. This is a super important conversation that he's about to have with him. And if you've never heard this conversation, you need to pay very close attention to this conversation that's about to be had. Rich Dad rocked back in his swivel chair, hands up to his chin, and stared at me. Not bad, he said. In less than a month, you sound like most of my employees. What? I asked, not understanding what he was saying. I continued with my grievance. I thought you were going to keep your end of the bargain and teach me. Instead, you want to torture me. That's cruel. That's really cruel. He said, I am teaching you, Rich Dad said quietly. What have you taught me? Nothing, I said angrily. You haven't even talked to me once since I agreed to work for peanuts, 10 cents an hour. Ha! I should notify the government about you. We have child labor laws, you know. My dad works for the government, you know. Wow, said Rich Dad. Now you sound just like most of the people who used to work for me. People I've either fired who have quit. So what do you have to say? I demanded, feeling pretty brave for a little kid. You lied to me. I've worked for you and you have not kept your word. You haven't taught me anything. How do you know that I've not taught you anything? Asked Rich Dad calmly. That's a deep question, isn't it? How do you know that I have not taught you anything? That's powerful. That's a key concept. How would he know? Because the conversation that he's going to have with him is going to be totally different than the conversation of the average person that was poor or middle class. It's impossible for you to know at this juncture, which takes us to the circle. I'm going to deal with that circle at a different time. But this is a concept that everyone needs to know, right? How do you know that I've not taught you anything? Asked Rich Dad calmly. Well, you've never talked to me. Key phrase. I've worked for 3 weeks and you have not taught me anything, I said with a pout. Does teaching mean talking or a lecture? Rich Dad asked. Does it? That's a very good question. Most people believe it does. That's why they go to school and pay all that money to go to college because they believe that teaching means talking or lecturing. Well, yes, I replied. That's how they teach you in school, he said, smiling. But that is not how life teaches you. And I would say that life is the best teacher of all. Most of the time, life does not talk to you. It just sort of pushes you around. Each push is life saying, wake up. There's something I want you to learn. What is this man talking about? I asked myself silently, which is what most people would say. All right. They would cut off their listening at that moment, right? Because why would they cut off their listening at that moment? They would cut off their listening at that moment because that is a foreign concept to them. The concept is foreign. The concept is different. The concept is what they can't grasp. They can't wrap their mind around that concept, right? And he said, what? What is this man talking about? I asked myself silently. Life pushing me around was life talking to me. Now I knew I had to quit my job. I was talking to someone who needed to be locked up. And that's why I said there's two different worlds. This is why a lot of people miss opportunity. This is why people can't understand money. This is why, because it's so far beyond you were, let me say it this way. We were taught the total opposite of that which was right. Meaning it's so opposite and outside of what you've ever learned. It's so opposite to what you were taught that it's almost seems unbelievable. It's literally insane to you or to the average person, right? Because it's insane to us because we were taught the exact opposite idea. And this is where we miss opportunity. This is where we miss the productivity and life-giving experiences that we could have because it's the exact opposite of what you're taught. And we were purposely taught opposite. Why? Because the opposite of wealthy is poor. The opposite of starting your own business is working a job for me for the rest of your life. So I need you would and if I was to own a business and I wanted everyone working for me, how in the world I would teach you the opposite of owning a business. If I needed you to stay poor so you could never get out of a job so I could keep you working for me, why would I ever teach you about what everything I have to teach you has to be the things that are going to walk you opposite to becoming wealthy, right? And so that's where most people are learning that which will keep them impoverished purposefully. If you learn life's lessons, you will do well. If not, life will just continue to push you around. People do two things. Some just let life push them around. Others get angry and push back, but they push back against their boss or their job or their husband or wife. They do not know it's life that's pushing, not the boss, not the job, not the husband, not the wife. It's life. For what purpose? To get the lesson. I had no idea what he was talking about. Now, remind you, he's 9 years old at this time. Getting these type of understand, these type of that's high level understanding, right? Life pushes all of us around. Some people give up and others fight. A few learn the lessons and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. To these few people, it means they need and want to learn something. They learn and move on. Most do what? Quit. Winners never quit and quitters never win. Most quit and a few like you fight. Rich Dad stood and shut the creaky old wooden window that needed repair. If you learn this lesson, you will grow into a wise, wealthy, and happy young man. If you don't, you will spend your life blaming, keyword, keyword, keyword. Anytime you think about blaming someone, you should stop immediately. You should, that's, and I'm not going into, again, um, I don't want to go into mindset. So I'm not. But blaming is the worst thing you can do. So life, if you don't, you will spend your life blaming a job, low pay, or your boss for your problems. You'll live life always hoping for that big break that will solve all your money problems. Rich Dad looked over at me to see if I was still listening. His eyes met mine. We stared at each other, communicating through our eyes. Finally, I looked away once I had absorbed his message. I knew he was right. I was blaming him, and I did ask to learn. I was fighting. Rich Dad continued, or if you're the kind of person who has no guts, you just give up every time life pushes you. If you're that kind of person, you'll live all your life playing it safe, doing the right things, saving yourself for some event that never happens. Then you die a boring old man. You'll have lots of friends who really like you because you're such a nice, hardworking guy. But the truth is that you let life push you into submission. Deep down, you were terrified of taking risks. You really wanted to win, but the fear of losing was greater than the excitement of winning. Deep inside, you and only you will know you didn't go for it. And this is where most people live, right? This is where 99% of people live right here. You chose to play it safe. Our eyes met again. You've been pushing me around, I asked. Some people might say that, smiled Rich Dad. I would say that I just gave you a taste of life. What taste of life? I asked, still angry, but now curious and ready to learn. You boys are the first people who have ever asked me to teach them how to make money. I have more than 150 employees, and not one of them has asked me what I know about money. That's deep, isn't it? Because in reality, they don't want to know how to make money. They want to be a slave and you to pay them. That's what they want. To be truthful. We just 150% truthful. That's all most people want. They just want to be a wage slave forever, for real. And do what? No responsibility and be able to blame somebody else, their boss, for all their problems. That's what they really want. Because if they didn't, they would have asked him, how do I make money? That would make perfect sense. That make perfect sense, doesn't it? They asked me for a job, right? They submit an application, ask me for a job and a paycheck. He's in control of their entire life. I don't know if you've ever had employees, but if you've had employees, trust me, you're in charge of their entire life. Their livelihood is in your hands. I don't feel safe with my livelihood in nobody's hands, but most people do. They asked me for a job and a paycheck, but never to teach them about money. So most will spend the best years of their lives working for money, not really understanding what it is they are working for. I sat there listening intently. So when Mike told me you wanted to learn how to make money, I decided to design a course that mirrored real life. I could talk until I was blue in the face, but you wouldn't hear a thing. So I decided to let life push you around a little bit so you could hear me. That's why I only paid you 10 cents. We got something in the chat. Oh, 1 second. Michelle, great. Thank you for loving this. I greatly appreciate that. Outstanding. 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 Thank you so much. So what is the lesson I learned from working for only 10 cents an hour, I asked? That you're cheap and you exploit your workers. Ah, that was funny. That was a good one. So what is the lesson I learned from working for only 10 cents an hour? I asked. That you're cheap and exploit your workers? Rich Dad rocked back and laughed heartily. Finally, he said, you best change your point of view. Stop blaming me and thinking I'm the problem. Ooh, key point. If you think I'm the problem, then you have to change me. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, here comes the real problem. This is what nobody wants to do. If you realize that you're the problem, uh-oh, here we go, then you can change yourself, learn something, and grow wiser, right? Again, if you realize that you're the problem, this is when we stop pointing the finger at others and we begin to point the finger at ourselves, right? Yes, and we're not going through mindset, Michelle. We're going, that's why I'm not doing Think and Grow Rich. I'm doing Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And we're going to be going through these series because I'm going to be sharing Rich Dad, Poor Dad versus Think and Grow Rich and those type of books because we're not doing with mindset. We're going to be dealing specifically with how to become wealthy, the way we should be utilizing our monies. All of that, these are going to be like courses on like real live how to's versus um versus mindset. You can get mindset anywhere on money. And that's a good thing. You need it. You cannot build without having the proper mindset. But we really going to get into how to be able to look at a financial statement and properly read it, how to be able to understand your accountant and what they're looking at, how to understand how to invest properly, how to be able to get no risk hyper growth accounts that are paying 9 to 30% and there's no risk attached to it, right? Those type of things we're going to be learning for real, how to. And that's why I don't want that. And so mindset, I'm trying to stay as far away from that as possible because what I found was there's a lot of people with the mindset. There's a lot of people with the mindset, multitask, enjoy. Consider this like a podcast and enjoy it. There's a lot of people with the mindset, but what they don't have the knowledge base to actually, when they hear something that's going to actually make them wealthy, how to be able to quantify that. They can't connect that to where they're at. They can't connect it to, okay, this is what I need to do. Okay, I can take that and do this with it. I can take this and piece this together and move. They can't put it together because they've never been taught it. Because again, finance is not taught at school. Finance is taught in the home. And if that's the case, if I asked most people on this line and throughout the world, what did you learn about finance at home? The majority are going to say absolutely nothing. Right? How to become wealthy is not taught in school, it's taught at home. If I ask you, what did your parents teach you about being wealthy? The majority would say absolutely nothing. And then many were taught wrong. So you got both sides, right? And so we're moving forward into the right. But I'm glad. Listen, I'm going to be doing these on a regular, almost every day. And so, listen in, invite people, share this. You can do whatever you want with it, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay. And so, again, tonight I'm going to be doing a live on the credit build and repair workshop. Learn how to establish credit, increase credit score, read credit report, and correct errors. Okay, on the credit report. Also, how to be bankable. It's going to be very deep. I'm going to go into these subjects. It will be short, but if you want more information, that information will be here. I advise you to be on the live with me. I'm going to be simulcasting this to all my channels as well. So appreciate everybody being here, everybody's time. Like I said, you can listen to this like a podcast in your background. I'm leaving it up for the replay. And so, yeah, that's great. I'm glad that you're able to work and do it. If you're in a barber shop, hair salon, whatever, put it on, listen to it, play it in the background. You know, everybody in there needs this information. They need this, really, right? So, what is the lesson I learned from working for only 10 cents an hour? I asked that you're cheap and exploit your workers. I love that. I love that. I had to say that again. So he said, if you think I'm the problem, then you have to change me. If you realize that you're the problem, then you can change yourself, learn something, and then do what? Grow wiser. Most people want everyone else in the world to change but themselves. And that's the truth. They do. Listen, I want you to do something. This is an exercise that I want everybody to practice. I want you to start listening to people complaining. I'm not saying agree with them. I'm saying listen, just listen to them. And if you notice, when people complain, they're complaining about everything but themselves. Many times I've found that people complain as a smokescreen so other people are paying attention to something else except them. So a lot of people will use it as a defense mechanism so that people aren't looking at them, they're looking at other people. But when you learn to master self-evaluation, when you learn to realize that you are the problem, then you can change yourself, learn something, and grow wiser. Most people want everyone else in the world to change but themselves. Let me tell you, it's easier to change yourself than everyone else. I don't understand, I said. Don't blame me for your problems, Rich Dad said, growing impatient. But you only pay me 10 cents. So what are you learning? Rich Dad asked, smiling. That you're cheap, I said with a sly grin. See, you think I'm the problem, said Rich Dad, but you are. Well, keep that attitude and you'll learn nothing. Keep the attitude that I'm the problem, and what choices do you have? Key question. Well, if you don't pay me more or show me more respect and teach me, I'll quit. Well put, Rich Dad said. And that's exactly what most people do. They quit and go looking for another job, a better opportunity, and higher pay, actually thinking that this will solve the problem. In most cases, it won't. So, what should I do? I asked. Just take this measly 10 cents an hour and smile? Rich Dad smiled. That's what the other people do. But that's all they do, waiting for a raise, thinking that more money will solve their problems. Most just accept it, and some take a second job working harder, but again, accepting a small paycheck. I sat staring at the floor, beginning to understand the lesson Rich Dad was presenting. I could sense it was a taste of life. Finally, I looked up and asked, so what will solve the problem? Now, this is the key question. That is such a powerful question. That question is so powerful. Why is that question powerful? Whether you believe in the Bible or not, or however you look at the Bible, I just want you to grasp this concept, because when you look at it, look at the moral of the story. I want you to look at the moral. That was the question that the Creator asked Cain. He said, why are you angry? If you do as well, will you not be blessed, is what he was basically saying. Will you not be blessed? I'm paraphrasing. Will you not, if you do as well, will you not be accepted? And if you do as not well, sin lieth at your door, and he shall rule over thee. No, and you shall rule over him. Excuse me. Not he shall rule over thee. You shall rule over him if you do it not well. But what did all Cain have to ask? What did I do wrong? How can I fix this? But his anger, his ego, his pride, his arrogancy, because ego ain't nothing but negative emotion in reality. And that's a whole nother course. But the truth of the matter is, All he had to do was ask, how can I fix it? That's what most people are scared to ask. That's what they don't ask. They complain and go back to the job that they hate, or they quit and go to another job that they hate, instead of asking, so what will solve the problem? That was the right question. Remember the movie? What was the name of that movie with Will Smith? I Robot. He kept asking questions, then he'd be like, wrong question, wrong question. Then he'd ask a question, he'd say, that is the right question. That is the right question. That is the right question. So he finally got to, after all of this, to the right question. So what will solve the problem? Now he was what? Truly open to learning. But what stopped him this whole time? The same thing that stopped Cain: anger, emotion. Negative emotion stopped him from thinking rationally to ask the right question. This is what it means. It's in meditation when we're talking about clear your mind, right? Let go. You must learn to be able to think clearly, even in a situation that might where you might be upset. Now he was what? Open to learn. He didn't do what Cain did. Cain went and killed his brother out of anger, jealousy, all ego. That's all ego. But he dropped his ego right here. And he says, so what will solve the problem? Wow. Simple question made all the difference. Then he said, this, he said, leaning forward in his chair and tapping me gently on the head, this stuff between your ears. That's back to Michelle, what? Think and Grow Rich, right? That's back to Think and Grow Rich, right? So this stuff between your head is what's going to make all the difference in the world, right? Absolutely. Miserable feelings, the negative emotion is the ego. When you learn to remove negative emotion, you've really learned to remove the ego. Arrogancy, negative emotion. Pride, negative emotion. Jealousy, negative emotion. Anger, negative emotion. Hatred, negative emotion. When you learn to remove those at all times, you have learned. Fear, negative emotion. When you learn to remove those, you will have learned to remove the ego. That's why I'm so glad to hear the movement of positivity going throughout the world now. Just the power. That's so people. That is so powerful in itself. The positive movement is so powerful. It was at that moment that Rich Dad shared the pivotal point of view that separated him from his employees and my poor dad, and led him to eventually become one of the richest men in Hawaii. While my highly educated but poor dad struggled financially all his life, it was a singular point of view that made all the difference over a lifetime. A single point of view that made all the difference over a lifetime. Rich Dad explained this point of view over and over, which I call lesson number one. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. So that's back where? Back to the chart. Here we go again. The debt cycle versus the wealth cycle. This is the wealth cycle, which should say wealth cycle up there. So it says some income, you pay your bills, you're short on cash, you spend credit, balances grow, and then what happens? Higher payments. Whereas the wealthy have a wealth cycle. They get income, they pay themselves first, they put that money in an investment that's going to bring them high yield returns. They master credit, they don't spend credit, they get a good credit account. Their interest grows and they spend interest, right? And that is where they become wealthy. The wealthy, the poor do what? They work for money to do what? Pay bills. The wealthy do what? Their money works for them. They get money coming in. They then what? Pay themselves and invest that money so that they don't have to work no more. And now what's coming in is now becoming their income. What's coming in is now becoming their income, starting with residual income first. That's where we start, right? So once you master the idea of residual income, we got to move from the B quadrant, or you can even keep the B quadrant into the I quadrant. And what I'm going to be sharing with you all over these weeks is how to step into this I quadrant from the money that you already have coming in. How to step into the I quadrant. But there's concepts that you must understand first. I've been sharing this information with a lot of people, but they can't grasp it because they don't have the wherewithal to grab the concept. So like I said, we're starting back with the basics. I even am going through this because I'm learning so much going through this again. This book is so powerful. I didn't even realize how powerful it was. I read this when I was like 20 years old, and it's helped me greatly just through that phase. But just where I'm at now is going to take me further. So the poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money. Do what? Work for them. Okay. So I'm going to switch back to the book now. Hold 1 second. I want to turn this off. I want to go back to the book. And we should be good. Everybody should be able to see it. All right. Now, let's continue. On that bright Saturday morning, I learned a completely different point of view from what I had been taught by my poor dad. At the age of 9, I understood that both dads wanted me to learn. Both dads encouraged me to study, but not the same things. My highly educated dad recommended that I do what he did. Son, I want you to study hard, get good grades so you can find a safe, secure job with a big company and make sure it has excellent benefits, right? My rich dad wanted me to learn how much. And let me ask you a question. If we look at people that did this, how many of them are really, really happy with where their life ended up? A very small amount. And then those that followed this program and actually had a retirement plan, how many of them are happy with the money that they're getting from their retirement and pension plan? Very small amount. So this lets us know we don't want to follow this path, right? This is not the path that we want to follow if you want to actually be happy at the end of life and you want to be able to leave a legacy for your family, right? We talked about the responsibility of leaving a legacy yesterday, right? So you can go back and watch that as well. That video from yesterday, part one of um, of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Do I got this on? You know what? I got this on Think and Grow Rich. I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I am tripping. Let me change this. Should be Rich Dad Poor Dad part two. Give me 1 second, guys. I got to change this. That is all my fault. Yeah, okay, cool. I changed it. I'm praying that it changes on them. I don't have to go through all of these and change them. So we'll continue to Rich Dad Poor Dad. So it says, I'm glad you got angry. Oh, I'm sorry. He said, my rich dad wanted me to learn how the money works so I could make it work for me. These lessons I would learn through life with his guidance, not because of a classroom. My rich dad continued my first lesson. I'm glad you got angry about working for 10 cents an hour. If you hadn't got angry and you had simply accepted it, I would have to tell you that I could not teach you. You see, true learning takes energy, passion, and a burning desire. Where do we get these from? Think and Grow Rich, right? But that's all mindset though. So if you haven't read the book, get it. I don't care if you get the audio but if you get the audio, you need to listen to it about 10, 15 times because you have to get it inside of you. But if you read it a couple times, right? Take notes, read that book. Every single help book written after Think and Grow Rich, every single help book, self-help, money, all of these books are based on a chapter, at least one chapter of Think and Grow Rich. The only reason I'm utilizing these books, especially when we start getting in the cash flow quadrant and investing, a guide to investing and so forth, and financial IQ and so forth when it comes to Robert Kiyosaki, is because his are more practical use books. And that's what I want us to do. I want us to be in practical usage. Practical usage, right? So passion does not direct them, fear does. So, okay, I apologize. I might have skipped something. So he said, my rich dad continued my first lesson. I'm glad you got angry about working for 10 cents an hour. If you had not got angry and had simply accepted it, I would have to tell you that I could not teach you. You see, true learning takes energy, passion, and a burning desire. Anger is a big part of that formula. For passion is anger and love combined, right? It's more than that. I don't use anger because that's ego, but you don't need anger. You've got to have unconditional love, and the passion has to come through love and the energy of wanting to love so strong. When it comes to money, most people want to play it safe and feel secure. So passion does not direct them, fear does. Fear directs most people, right? And take a note of yourself. I want you to take a note of yourself. I want you to look at and see and say, okay, did I make this choice, or am I making this choice no matter what opportunity presents itself or what's going on? Did I make this choice out of fear, or did I make this choice because it is actually the best choice, or yeah, the best choice on the table? In other words, was I afraid to get into this program because this, or was I afraid to invest my money because I might lose it? Was I afraid? Did I make the choice off of that? Or did I make the choice off of what if I win? I could actually have this. But right now, it might be better for me to do this. That's okay. But if you're making the choice out of the fear of loss, the fear of something, if you're making it out of that choice, then right, that's what happens. Then that's bad. That's bad. And that's what most people do. And you were taught to be afraid. You were taught to allow fear to rule you. And that's ego. Fear is ego. That's an ego. It's an unnatural fear for me to say, if you invest $150, right, and I'm going to get you $600 every week, and you don't do that, that's fear. That's stupid. You understand what I'm saying? That's fear. You did that. You made that choice out of fear or ignorance. Ignorance could be it too. It means you can't do the math to realize that if I give 150 and I'm going to get $600, you might not be able to calculate that mentally quickly. That could also be it. It could be ignorance, but it's either fear or it's ignorance, right? So we definitely, let me check. I want to make sure nothing's going on. We want to definitely make sure that it's not fear. Ignorance can be rectified, right? Fear sometimes can't. All right. So hold 1 second. I want to make sure. Okay, this meeting is going to be at 5:30. So I want us to 5:30 Central Standard Time. So for those of you that just joined, I am going to be going live. It says 6 o'clock here, but it's going to be 5:30. 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 4:30 p.m. Is that 4:30? No, 3:30 p.m. Yes, Pacific Standard Time. That's correct. 3:30. Okay, so that changed. I want to make sure that everybody's clear on that. I'm looking forward. I will be live for that session um, as well. And welcome in whoever's coming in. Please drop it in the chat. It's good to see you. I can't tell who's on, but I'm glad that you are. All right, we got a Twitch rolling right now. We got Facebook. Got a couple people on, so it's good. Let's keep moving. I'm glad. And like I said, listen to it like a podcast. Put it in the background if you need to and just roll and listen, but share it. Share it on your page. Share it with your people. Share it as much as you can because we want more and more and more people listening to this because this is information that can change and save lives. And I dealt with why it saves lives in the last um, live that I did. So you can go back and listen to that at your leisure. Okay. So when it comes to money, most people want to play it safe and feel secure. So passion does not direct them, fear does. So is that why they'll take jobs with low pay? I asked. Yes, said Rich Dad. Some people say why do they take jobs with low pay? Because they're afraid. What are they afraid of? They're afraid they can't pay their bills. They're afraid that they might get kicked out their house. They're afraid. That's fear. If you're making choices based on fear, people go to a job that they hate for their whole life. I watched a video. This was real life video, like a testimonial video, thanking our company for actually saving them from this, right? And so they were saying that they were going to a job where their mother was in the hospital dying. I want you to hear me. Her mother was on her deathbed, and the job said, if you go, you will be fired. And she stayed on. What you think made her make that choice? Do you think that was an educated decision? Do you think wisdom had her make that choice? Do you believe that? Absolutely not. Wisdom could never help have her make that choice. What had her make that choice was straight up fear. Fear had her make that choice. At this time, I'm going to do a station identification. I'm going to be coming right back. Don't go anywhere. I just have to move and make a station identification. Give me 1 second and I will be right back. Please bear with me as I do this. Mr. Dummy is me, so please don't get offended as I talk about myself. Mr. Dummy was good at making money. Mr. Dummy would make a lot of money and then lose a lot of money. Mr. Dummy would make a lot of money and spend a lot of money. Mr. Dummy would make money and invest money himself and therefore lose more money. Then one day, Mr. Dummy learned a very important lesson that millionaires and billionaires do not invest their money. They have high caliber experts that invest their money for them. Mr. Dummy again thought he was smart and tried to find experts that could invest his money for him. But he found that the average experts were low caliber investors and could only get a minimal return on Mr. Dummy's money. That's when Mr. Dummy ran into a group of experts that were the same caliber of investors as Warren Buffett, Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Bill Gates caliber of investors. Now Mr. Dummy has a clear path to billion-dollar status. Mr. Dummy became Mr. Smart once he realized he was smart at making money, but not an expert in investing money. If you would like access to these investors, please like or comment. All right. So I appreciate everybody. Again, I want to, for those that are just joining us, welcome. You feel free to type in the chat. And so thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate that. Thank you, Jed. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the live right now. Michelle, great. Thank you so much for everything. Again, you saw station identification tonight at 5:30. For those of you that are just attending, I will be doing a live 5:30 Central Standard Time, 6:30 Eastern, and 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. I will be doing a live credit build and repair workshop. Learn how to establish credit, increase credit score, read credit report, correct errors, and be bankable. The market is stronger, but it was shorter notice, and I'm glad to be able to help people that need that type of support. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move into the next phase of this, which where we left off. It says, and we're in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Part 2, right? And we're going to be going through this book. There's 6 lessons that we're to learn, and we're in lesson number 1. Feel free to always rewatch these anytime. Get as many people on as possible that you can as well. We're going to be helping a lot of people with this as well. So get as many people on, learn the information, get the book. I advise everyone to get the book. Always get the book if you can, get it, follow along, and mark it up. You know, there's a lot of information. And the reason we're doing Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like I said, I don't want to get into a lot of mindset. As we go through Robert Kiyosaki's books, you're going to find that they're more practical use books. We need practical use. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of things dealing with practical use and understanding finance for real, not for fake, the things we should have learned at home, right? That they don't teach at school. So finance is not learned in the school, it's learned at home. And so I've been blessed to be privy to get to talk with wealthy individuals and be able to get the secrets of the wealthy to be able to share with you all. Okay, for real. And I'm just learning these things. We're going to grow together. By 2024, we're going to be wealthy together as a unit, as one force. Okay, so just keep watching. Please tune in, share, subscribe, like, so you get information. When I drop something, you get it. Okay, so you know that I'm going live when I'm going live. You can listen to these, like I said, as a podcast in the background. If you can't watch it, you're busy doing something, just put it on as a podcast in the background. and listen to it. Okay. So, um, so fear is where we left off, right? People do things out of fear. You want to make sure that you're not doing anything out of fear. So is this why they'll take jobs with low pay? Robert Kiyosaki asked, yes, said Rich Dad. Some people say I exploit people because I don't pay as much as the sugar plantation or the government. I say that people exploit themselves. It's their fear, not mine. But don't you feel you should pay them more? I asked. I don't have to. And besides, more money will not solve their problems. This to me was one of the listening into this book and reading this book this time. This was a eye opener for me. And I want, and hopefully you all as well, and some of you listening as well. But the issue is people are always looking for more money. But if you are not prepared, more money is not going to help you. It's going to cause you more problems. And they're going to break this down. This is the key point right here, right? So he said, I don't have to. And besides, more money will not solve their problems. Just look at your dad. He makes a lot of money and he still can't pay his bills. Wow. So he's just what? Broke on a high level. That's what we call that. And I've been there. Broke on a high level, right? Why? Because people are trying to keep up with the Joneses. They don't understand money. And if you don't understand money, all you're going to do is work yourself into the grave, right? We want to do what? Four components to wealth is what? Enough money to take care of you, your family, and future generations. Two, your health. Three, your time, right? You want your time to be able to spend with your family, the loved ones, and do the things that you want to do. And four, philanthropist effort where you're helping people around the world. Wisdom. The three components of wisdom are what? Length of days, that's your health, right? Two, riches, right? Three, honor. So you're going to develop your riches and get honor when you develop your riches, right? And you'll see as we go through these books with Robert Kiyosaki, you're going to see his rich dad actually ended up dying honorably with massive honor throughout the entire world. And this is what we want to do, right? So we want to be honored. That's wisdom. Wisdom has three components, not one. It ain't about being smart. That's what we think. We think wisdom equals smart. No, it don't. Right? That's knowledge. But wisdom has three components attached to it. Right? So some people say I exploit people because I don't pay as much as the sugar plantation or the government. I say that people exploit themselves. It's their fear, not mine. But don't you feel you should pay them more? I asked. I don't have to. And besides, more money when I solve their problems. Just look at your dad. He makes a lot of money and he still can't pay his bills. Most people give more money, only get into more debt. Right? So when giving more money, they get into more debt, bad debt. That's why the 10, and where do we see that again? I got to keep coming back to this because I want to really inject this into the hearts and minds of people, right? And that is one, here we go. This is how we get in more debt, the debt cycle. More income, pay bills, short on cash, use credit. The more income we have, we create more bills to pay, short on cash, use credit, balances grow. Then what happens? Higher payments. It doesn't matter how much they pay you because until you learn to pay bills to pay yourself, invest your money so that now you receive interest payments, you will never get out of that trap. Right? That's key. Okay. So I'm going to come back now here. That's right, Smile Rich Dad. You see, your dad went to school. Right. So let's go back. So most people giving more money only get into more debt. So that's why the 10 cents an hour I said smiling. It's a part of the lesson. That's right, Smile Rich Dad. You see, your dad went to school and got an excellent education. so he could get a high paying job. But he still has money problems because he never learned anything about money in school. On top of that, he believes in working for money. And you don't? I asked. No, not really, said Rich Dad. If you want to learn to work for money, then stay in school. That is a great place to learn to do that. So if you made the choice, remember on the first call, I talked about making the choice. And that choice was what? What was the choice? When you were making the choice was which quadrant, the employee, the self-employed, the business system owner, or the investor, which quadrant or quadrants do you truly want to be in? I want you to be real. I don't want you to lie to yourself any longer. I want you to, because if you want to be an employee all your life, then go to school, get good grades, and get a good job, and get as much education as you can in the proper field that's paying the most money. That is what you need to do to get, if you want a job and work a job the rest of your life. That's a good, there's nothing wrong with that, but please make the conscious decision to do it. Please realize that you might not be happy at that job for the rest of your life. Please realize there's a high probability that you will not be able to leave a legacy for your children in that quadrant. Please recognize that you will be living more than likely paycheck to paycheck in that quadrant. And please realize that you'll be working for money until you are, either they fire you, until you are no longer able to work due to your age, or until you retire. Okay? I want you to be clear on that. But make that decision consciously. Don't allow fear to push you into that direction. Don't allow the fact of you not being knowledgeable in other areas, which again would be fear or ignorance, push you into that direction. Go in that direction because that's what you really want to do, right? Like he said, he wanted to be a school teacher. That's not going to pay you no money. But if you make that choice because that's what you really want to do, right? Just be clear on that. Be very clear there. All right. So what do you say there? What does it say next? That's right, Small Rich Dad. You see, your dad went to school, got an excellent education, so he get a high-paying job, but he still has money problems because he never learned anything about money in school. On top of that, he believes in working for money. And you don't, I asked? No, not really, said Rich Dad. If you want to learn to work for money, then stay in school. That is a great place to learn to do that. But if you want to learn how to have money work for you, then I will teach you that, but only if you want to learn. Only if you want to learn. Wouldn't everyone want to learn that? I asked. And that is the key to this. That is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with, is realizing no, they don't. Most people want to stay stuck where they are. They love it. They are so comfortable where they are. They're just complaining for the fun of it. It's like they're addicted to negativity, is what it is, really, right? So many people just want to have a reason to complain, and they enjoy it. So don't get upset if somebody doesn't want to move forward. And that's why I say make the conscious decision. Don't be running around tricking people, making them think you want to go somewhere else and do something greater. You got what I'm saying? Just be who you are and be real with it. That's all I'm saying. You're right. And that is the question I love this question. But that used to bother me to the hilt. Wouldn't everyone want to learn that? I asked. No, said Rich Dad, simply because it's easier. I told you they're comfortable, right? It's easier to learn to work for money, especially if fear is your primary emotion when the subject of money is discussed. I don't understand, I said with a frown. Don't worry about that for now. Just know that it's fear that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, and the fear of starting over. That's the price of studying to learn a profession or trade and then working for money. Most people become a slave to money and then get angry at their boss. Learning to have money work for you is a completely different course of study, I asked. Absolutely, Rich Dad answered. Absolutely. We sat in silence on that beautiful Hawaiian Saturday morning. My friends had just apologized. Uh-oh. I think I'm here. Let me move down. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. I apologize. I accidentally hit the button. Lesson, da, 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 da. No, no, not really. If you want to learn to work for money, then stay in school. It's a great place. We are almost there, guys. No, said Rich Dad, simply because it's easier to learn to work for money, especially if fear is your primary emotion when the subject of money is discussed. I don't understand, I said with a frown. Don't worry about that for now. Just for now, just know that it's fear that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, and the fear of starting over, right? Key fears, not being able to pay your bills. Are you making choices based on not being able to pay your bills? If you are, that's a problem. You cannot make the choice based on your bills. You can't do that. The fear of being fired, if you're afraid of being fired from your job and you're making choices based on being fired, just like that woman decided not to see her mother before she died on her deathbed because the job would fire her if she had left, right? That was a fear of being fired. The fear of not having enough money, right? You can't fear that either. And the fear of starting over. You can't fear that no matter what age you are. That's the price of studying to learn a professional trade and then working for money. Most people become a slave to money and then get angry at their boss. Right? They become a slave to money and then do what? They get angry at their boss. That's what happens. That's real life. I mean, and if you pay it, if you really listen, if you're an honest person, you know that's true. I don't care what quadrant you're in. If you ever worked a job, you know this is true. Learning to have money work for you is a completely different course of study, I asked. Yep, absolutely, Rich Dad answered. Absolutely. Sat in silence on that beautiful Hawaiian Saturday morning. My friends had just started their Little League baseball game, but for some reason, I was now thankful I had decided to work for 10 cents an hour. His mindset changed. That was a mindset change, a perception change. He was now understanding, right, what was going on. I sensed that I was about to learn something my friends wouldn't learn in school. Ready to learn? Asked Rich Dad. Absolutely, I said with a grin. I've kept my promise. I have been teaching you from afar, my rich dad said. At 9 years old, you've gotten a taste of what it feels like to work for money. Just multiply your last month by 50 years, and you will have an idea of what most people spend their life doing. Right? That's real, ain't it? That is real. I don't understand, I said. How did you feel waiting in line to see me once to get hired and once to ask for more money? Terrible, I said. If you choose to work for money, that is what life will be like, said Rich Dad. And how did you feel when Mrs. Martin dropped 3 dimes in your hand for 3 hours of work? I felt like it wasn't enough. It seemed like nothing. I was disappointed, I said. And that is how most employees feel when they look at their paychecks, especially after all the tax and other deductions are taken out. At least you got 100%. You mean most workers don't get paid everything? I asked with amazement. Heavens no, said Rich Dad. The government always takes its share first. How do they do that? I asked. Taxes, said Rich Dad. You're taxed when you earn, you're taxed when you spend, you're taxed when you save, you're taxed when you die. It's real. That's real. If you have a job, that's one thing about the wealthy. You get when you work when you have your own business, you get to take your taxes first. You get to use them. You can invest your taxes and do the things that we're going to talk about in the future that you can do. Right. So with that, guys, I think we're going to stop right here. And we're going to start back tomorrow. Let me see what page we're on, or either later on tonight, it'll be one of the two, possibly tomorrow. Let me see what page we are on. We'll start back on page 25, okay? Tomorrow. So page 25, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm looking forward to definitely doing that tomorrow. What I'm going to do now is start preparing for the live that I have to do tonight in about, 20, 30 minutes. So I'm going to start preparing for that. I'm going to close this stream and I will see you all at the next stream. Again, it's going to start at 5:30 Central Standard Time. Let me put this up just so you guys know it. It's going to start at 5:30 Central Standard Time, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, and 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. Credit build and repair workshop. Learn how to establish credit, increase credit score, read credit report, correct errors, be bankable. All right. And I'll be doing it. It'll be about a 20, 30-minute presentation. And there should be a lot of people on that Zoom since this is going to be, they've invited me to actually speak at this one. So I'll see you all there. Love you all and see you all at the top.